Welcome to the Cybersecurity Defenders Podcast, weekly intel chat. My name's Christopher Luft. I'm one of the co-founders of LimaCharlie, and I will be your host. Joining me today to break down the cybersecurity news being shared by the awesome InfoSec community is the one and only Matt Bromley. And don't forget, this podcast is brought to you by LimaCharlie, maker of the SecOps Cloud platform, infrastructure for security operations. Think of it as a backend for your MSSP, where everything is built API first. Scale with ease and confidence as your business grows. You can start today for free at limacharlie.io. Now let's get into it. Matt Bromley, how you doing, sir?
Hey, Chris, what's going on, man? How are you today?
Pretty good. You know, we were just chatting before we hit the record button, and things are busy. We were saying that AI was supposed to make our lives easier, but it seems like there's just more things to monitor and be on top of now. So.
It is supposed to make life easier, but like all technology, it's just more stuff to look at, I think. And maybe it's a good thing, maybe it's a bad thing, right? I'm doing less work, but I'm reviewing more of someone else's work. The agents and stuff like that. So I don't know. It's a little bit of here, a little bit of that. I think it's just it's a cool trend of the times, I think. But I'm hoping this one stays. I'm having fun with it.
And as a technologist, it feels like just an exciting time in technology again. I think the last time I was this excited was sort of when the mobile phones came out and Apple had the app market and you could like make stuff that ran on your phone and it had geolocation. Like that was such a cool thing back then. And now it's AI. So
I remember those days, and I'm in the same boat. Same boat. I'm excited for where we are right now, and I'm excited for what's happening. I like it. It's actually a lot of fun, to be honest.
All right. Well, I think you're going to be excited about the first one we got today. CISA has added CVE-2025-54948, a critical vulnerability in Trend Micro Apex 1 to its known exploited vulnerabilities or KEV catalog, signaling that the flaw has been actively exploited in the wild. The vulnerability affects on-premise Apex 1 management consoles and is categorized as a pre-authentication remote code execution or RCE issue stemming from a command injection flaw. According to Trend Micro's advisory, attackers can leverage this vulnerability to upload malicious code and execute arbitrary commands on impacted systems without needing to authenticate first. Trend Micro confirmed at least one exploitation attempt and has not disclosed further technical details about the attack vectors or threat actors involved. The CVE shares technical similarities with another critical vulnerability, CVE-2025-54987, which also impacts the Apex 1 management console. While both allow the same type of exploitation, the latter targets a different CPU architecture. These flaws were discovered by Jackie Shea of Core Cloud Tech through the Trend Zero Day Initiative. The Common Vulnerability Scoring System, or CVSS, rating assigned to both is 9.4, placing them firmly in the critical severity range. Exploitation requires access to a vulnerable console, meaning externally exposed systems are at a higher risk if mitigations such as IP filtering are not in place. So, Matt, it made it all the way to the KEV, so what are we going to do?
It made it all the way to the KEV. For anyone who may be hearing this for the very first time, the KEV is your final tripwire for should I care about this thing. To be honest, this one I feel like landed on the KEV. I'm not sure. Maybe it just like leapfrogged all the rest and just got there. I didn't track the history too much of this CVE being reported, but for anyone who's curious, Chris and I are not just here talking about a vulnerability of Trend Micro's Apex 1 platform, but the other side is it is actually actively being exploited by threat actors out there as well. So that's what the KEV means, known exploited vulnerabilities. And that's why we are hinging a little bit on like, hey, this is a top priority right here, right? This is no longer a maybe we'll get around to it kind of a thing. If you have an adversary coming after your environment and they run into an on-prem Apex 1 deployment and you're not patched, they can weaponize and use this thing against you if they haven't already. So I'm just going to drop out and say, Chris, you probably got some more information about the fix and what the tool is, but there is a temporary fix in place. Highly recommend anyone and everyone take that into advisement, please. Chris is going to cover those details in just a moment. But I just want to reiterate and constantly restate throughout this podcast that anytime a vulnerability drops, if it's for a piece of tooling, software, hardware, whatever you have in your environment, you need to have that sort of risk assessment matrix in place. And I'm stealing the word risk assessment matrix, but I'm going to butcher it a little bit. But, there needs to be some sort of an assessment of like, how quick do I need to patch this thing? And the first bar has to be, I think, is it being actively exploited? And if the answer is yes, nothing else matters, because then it's just a matter of time, right? And then you can also have questions such as like, is it on-prem? Is it internet facing? Is it in the cloud? Is it public? Whatever it might be. Is it possible that an adversary may be able to take advantage of it? Is it a system I can take offline? Is it a legacy thing we don't need anymore? Like, there's all these questions that come into play, but is it being actively exploited, and do I own it? Tripwire, patch it. But Chris, you got some more information about the fix in place, I think.
Yeah, so Trend Micro responded by deploying mitigations for its cloud-based Apex One as a service platform as of July 31st, 2025. For on-premise deployments, a temporary fix tool has been released. However, applying this tool disables the remote install agent feature, potentially impacting administrative workflows. Trend Micro noted that alternative installation mechanisms like using UNC or UNC paths or direct agent package deployment remain functional. A permanent patch is expected by mid-August. The company also advised customers to audit and restrict remote access to critical systems as an additional safeguard against exploitation attempts. CISA's inclusion of this CVE in the KEV catalog means that, under Binding Operational Directive 22-01, Federal Civilian Executive Branch, or FCEB, agencies must remediate the flaw by September 8, 2025. The directive aims to minimize the attack surface from known exploited vulnerabilities. Security professionals in both public and private sectors are encouraged to assess exposure and apply all recommended fixes and mitigations. This case also highlights the ongoing risk posed by exposed management interfaces, especially when pre-auth vulnerabilities can lead directly to RCE without user interaction. Yeah, those are the scary ones.
They are.
Pre-auth vulnerabilities, RCE without user interaction. That's like getting an email and having it run code without even having to click on anything, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, Chris, great call out, and certainly something that we want to have patched in place. So, hey, if you're a Trend Micro Apex One user, patch.
Get to it.
As always.
All right. So this next one, I never know what to say. PyPI? PyPI?
Wait, no, I
PyPI?
used to know the answer to this. It's PyPI.
PyPI. Okay.
I think we've talked about this before.
We have. I just can't keep up, and I can't remember.
It should be PyPI. Yes, PyPI.
Okay.
There we go.
PyPI. All right. So PyPI has introduced new security measures to detect and respond to expired domains tied to user accounts, aiming to shut down a known supply chain attack vector, domain resurrection. These attacks exploit the expiration of custom domains tied to email addresses used for account recovery. If an attacker purchases a lapsed domain, they can potentially intercept passwords, reset emails, and hijack PyPI accounts. The new system proactively marks email addresses as unverified when their associated domains are found to be expired, effectively disrupting the takeover path. Since June 2025, PyPI has unverified over 1,800 email addresses tied to domains in an expiration phase. Although this isn't a complete solution, it does address a historically weak point in package repository security, particularly for packages that are abandoned but still heavily used in production environments. If a package maintainer no longer maintains their custom domain, an attacker takes control of that domain, they can request a password reset and gain access to the maintainer's PyPI account. This method bypasses normal email verification safeguards, especially if 2FA is not enforced. That's fascinating. I've never heard about this attack path before, but like you can pick up domains left, right, and center that are expiring, and then look for those domains and password dumps and start recovering accounts, and like that's an interesting attack path.
Pretty interesting, right? I feel that depending on, I don't know, maybe it speaks towards developer or package maintainer security or something. Like utilize an email that kind of sticks with you for a while, or utilize an anonymous one. I'm not really too sure. I find that one to be pretty interesting. 1,800 unverified email addresses. I don't know, Chris, maybe I would raise the question of like, maybe you shouldn't be able to submit a package if you have an unidentified or unverified email address, but neither here nor there. I think more interesting is the fact that they're taking kind of this like really novel approach towards it. The idea of maintaining maintainer email addresses is something that PyPI can do within their full scope of, I guess, user capabilities and customer data retention, and to be able to say like, hey, we can't, go and validate that everyone is who they say they are and stuff like that, but we can get rid of unverified accounts. We can control this a little bit and kind of temper down the potentially weird or malicious population and prevent some sort of a account takeover from taking place and stuff like
Let's
that.
call them dangling emails.
Dangling emails. There we go. There we go. I think it's actually a really cool approach. I kind of wish we could see more of this. I wish we saw and maybe NPM will follow suit and stuff like that, because we've talked about all these package repositories before. Looking through the diagram here of kind of how they're doing this, I like that they are making decisions about whether the domain is active, there's a renewal grace period, a redemption period, so on and so forth. And they are looking at it as, we're looking for a way to help prevent an adversary or prevent someone malicious from gaining access to a thing they shouldn't have access to. I love it. And I really like the final little line here, which I think you're going to call out in just a moment, but preventing this kind of account takeover and minimizing potential exposure. It's slick because adversaries always find really unique, tricky ways into things. And I think this is just another way to be nope, not this one, not this time.
Especially this kind of system where there's so much downstream impact, right?
Yeah,
if they
absolutely.
gain access to one account, they potentially have access to hundreds of different machines or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so the risk was first highlighted in 2022 with the compromise of the CTX package, where an attacker used an expired domain to publish malicious versions under the original maintainer's name. To guard against similar future attacks, PyPI now queries domain status using Fastly's status API on a 30-day cadence. If a domain is flagged as expired, associated accounts will have their email marked unverified, even if the account has 2FA enabled. This minimizes potential damage from a single point of failure tied to domain ownership. In addition to monitoring domain status, PyPI is encouraging users to take proactive steps like enabling two-factor authentication and associating their account with a secondary verified email from a stable provider like Gmail or Outlook. These changes are especially relevant for users relying on custom domains, which are more prone to lapsing and therefore present a higher account security risk. The approach is not to block expired domains outright, but to limit their user use in authentication and recovery flows, a more measured response that still materially raises the barrier for attackers. So yeah, just a fascinating attack path I never would have thought of. And again, showing how creative threat actors can be and how we're just never going to finish this game of whack-a-mole.
It's going to continue forever, sir. It's going to continue. We're always going to be playing it, I think. No, I like this. I really like to see non-security folks taking a security-centric approach towards protecting their users and stuff like this. So I like it. I like the fact that they're using Fastly and they've built out querying the status. I like the fact that they kind of automated this process behind them and whatnot. They're offering advice about multi-factor authentication. I mean, it's a step in the right direction. Absolutely. I think it's a step in the right direction of trying to make sure, and we're looking at the PyPI domain resurrection attack. I think that's actually a really slick name. They're going through and, seeing ways that they can help protect users. And I like it. I really like that they're taking this approach. And like I said, I hope others do the same. They do give a little bit of a shout out towards the folks at Ruby Central for the initial ideas of their approach. So Baton, NPM, coming for you. You're next.
Yeah, I could almost see this being spun off as a SaaS company offering this service to multiple
Chris, don't give away all of our business plans, man. Come on. We got to get to episode 250 first.
Yeah. All right. Next up, a recently discovered post-exploitation tool named RingReaper is gaining attention for its sophisticated evasion strategy, abusing the Linux kernel's I/O Uring interface to operate undetected by standard endpoint detection and response, or EDR systems, introduced in kernel version 5.1 back in 2019. IO_Uring, or IO Uring, was designed to improve input-output efficiency by enabling asynchronous operations, reducing the overhead associated with traditional syscalls. By leveraging this interface, RingReaper avoids syscall hooks that EDR platforms typically monitor, making it one of the first known real-world examples of IO Uring-based malware used outside of academic proof of concepts. According to PICUS Security's technical analysis, that's PICUS, so your guess is as good as mine. According to their technical analysis, RingReaper isn't just a conceptually novel piece of malware, it's operationally effective. The tool replaces conventional system calls like read or send with IO Uring equivalents, such as IO Uring prep read and IO Uring prep send. This change in methodology allows it to bypass telemetry sources most EDRs rely on, especially those that hook at the syscall layer. PICUS security engineer Silla Ozaren notes that implementing a full-featured implant based on IO Uring is non-trivial, requiring deep expertise in kernel APIs and a solid understanding of how Linux EDR solutions collect behavioral data. This places RingReaper far above the skill level seen in typical commodity malware.
Yeah.
We've been seeing a lot of threat actor activity around bypassing EDR, turning EDRs off. Like this
We
seems to
have.
be where all
Past
the
couple
action
of
is right
weeks.
now. Yeah.
Past couple of weeks, I think. Interestingly enough, I think that we continue to see this stuff happening. Excuse me. Continue to see this stuff happening right around Black Hat time. As crazy as that is, right around Black Hat time. And interestingly enough, it's like, here's all the brand new stuff. And it's like, here's all the EDR bypasses and ways to get around it, which means because they're all hot in the news right now, Chris, you and I are tapping into them. Last week, we were talking about EDR evasions. We were talking about vulnerabilities. This week, we're talking about a vulnerability in Trend Micro. And now we've got RingReaper, which is geared, again, to work around typical system calls that are monitored by EDR technologies. I do have to agree with the poster, and I don't want to butcher your name, so I apologize, but awesome research in here. Sila, however you pronounce that. And I do agree with like the assessment, which is this is very in-depth knowledge and research of how EDR tools do what they do, and then subsequently replacing those to work around it. I mean, Chris, this is not like, oh, I'm going to turn off the thread so you can't see what I'm doing or anything like that. This is, I know what system calls you monitor. I'm going to build a 1-for-1 primitive replacement for that and work around it because no one's monitoring it. And I just find it pretty interesting. Of course, Chris, you know what this is going to do for everyone who has a Linux EDR agent. They're going to go and make these changes. So I hope, but it does identify kind of the level of sophistication. And this is definitely a sophisticated piece of malware. The level of sophistication you get when someone like really understands the Linux kernel, really understands how the EDR technology works, and then kind of builds a tool or a piece of malware to work around it.
Yeah, do you think this kind of thing is done from somebody who turned to the dark side after maybe a career on the blue team?
That's one of those things where I'm not entirely sure, because you're talking about if you've got someone who's doing, and I'm shooting from the hip a little bit here. If you've got someone who's skilled in kernel exploits, Linux kernel exploits and stuff like that, there's a very good chance that their version of Blue Team was borderline red, if you will, borderline, secret ops and stuff like that. Maybe, I'm not sure, but and I'm not saying that's what happened here, right? I'm just saying like this level of research, this level of insight really stems from like a goal and a motivation. I think is what I'm trying to get at here. There's definitely some vulnerabilities we've covered and some techniques we've talked about where someone's like, oh, that worked. And in this case here, I feel like the starting point was get around the EDR,
right?
And they did, And the other thing too, I think you mentioned this as well. This is no longer in an academic environment, so that's the other thing to take away. Is it was done previously in an academic environment, if I'm not mistaken, until 2025. Mostly academic or proof of concept, and now it's out in the wild. So the other possibility there too, Chris, is that someone picked up that academic research or suggestions and stuff and just ran with it.
Weaponize the research.
Yeah, that's also possible. In fact, that probably happened at some point.
All right. Functionally, RingReaper carries a post-compromise payload set tailored for stealthy operations on high-value Linux environments, cloud infrastructure, enterprise servers, and data centers. It uses I/O Uring not only for standard data collection tasks, such as listing processes, active terminals, and logged-in users, but also for exfiltrating collected data and escalating privileges. Notably, it includes a self-destruct capability executed entirely via I/O Uring, which wipes binaries and eliminates forensic artifacts to hinder detection and analysis. This use of I/O Uring, even for cleanup operations, demonstrates the tool's emphasis on minimizing its syscall footprint across the entire attack lifecycle. This isn't happening in isolation. RingReaper is part of a broader revolution in endpoint evasion techniques, following previous threats like Ghost Engine and Crypto24 ransomware, which focused on driver abuse and anti-EDR tooling. What sets RingReaper apart is that it doesn't rely on disabling EDR, it sidesteps its monitoring entirely, given that most EDRs are still blind to I/O Uring activity. Ozerin, the name of the researcher, advises organizations to begin instrumenting for this attack surface. That means monitoring rare syscalls like I/O Uring setup, flagging unexpected access to proc/or dev or PTS and network state files through IO Uring and adopting lower-level telemetry through kernel runtime tools. She also recommends disabling or restricting IO Uring entirely in production environments that don't explicitly need it, a practical move given that IO Uring adoption in enterprise workloads remains low. Okay, so the defense here might simply be just turn it off if you're not using it.
Yeah. Dev PTS is pseudo terminals.
Okay.
In Linux, sorry, Dev PTS for
for
anyone who might be listening who can't see what Chris was looking at. /dev/PTS pseudo terminals and kernel tables. I mean some interesting workarounds here for sure, but without a doubt, like definitely something that's going to, I think, be a big deal for EDR vendors and developers right now, Chris. I think this is something they're going to need to like really get into.
Yeah, and I don't think it's going to be super technically challenging. It's just a matter of cooking it into the things that they're monitoring, right?
Yeah, I would imagine so. And this is going to be one of those, like, the adversary has done a thing. Let's react to it. And it might be a little bit of whack-a-mole for a little bit here.
Yeah. All right. I think this is the last one we have. A cyber attack on the Netherlands Openbaar Ministrie, or OM, the public prosecution service, has unexpectedly disrupted speed enforcement across the country following the suspected exploitation of vulnerabilities in Citrix infrastructure. OM took itself offline on July 17th as a containment measure, causing widespread functional degradation of its connected systems. Among the unintended consequences, fixed speed cameras, average speed monitoring systems, and even portable speed cameras have gone dark. Only mobile phone detection cameras appear to remain operational. While the breach didn't target the cameras directly, the cameras rely on back-end systems under OM's control for storing and processing the evidence they collect. With those systems offline due to the security incident, there's no infrastructure available to handle incoming data from the field. Consequently, enforcement actions tied to automated speed violations have effectively been paused. It's a clear case of operational disruption cascading across dependent systems, even when they aren't the direct targets of a cyber attack. So this one, I thought, at first it's kind of funny, but then when you think about like the real world impact, they announced that all the speed cameras are down. And now people are like, oh, we can speed, or, a certain segment of people are like going to speed.
Yeah.
And then maybe somebody gets in an accident, somebody gets hurt, maybe somebody dies. So it's just like the knock-on effects of these things in the real world are real.
So I brought this one up for a couple reasons, Chris. This one caught my eye. First off, the fact that the article focuses on the speed cameras being brought down as like, hey, there's no more speed cameras. I was like, that it really stems away from the message that was made from the Public Prosecution Service. And I'm looking at the translated article here over at nos.nl. Documents for lawyers and contact with the probation service and things like that all have to be done by mail rather than online. So this is actually a pretty significant disruption. This one, it's unclear exactly how often this has happened since the PPS has disconnected its system from the internet. The quote is, "We have to print a lot again and send out paper copies." And I think this just goes really, we don't smile and laugh at others' misfortune, but it just goes to show when you're propping up kind of these critical public safety or public-based services, you've got to keep them patched. You've got to keep them updated. You've got to keep them secure, because it's when a downtime hits, it hits hard. And I don't know if there's necessarily a kinetic output here. I don't think there's anyone who's like, no speed cameras. All right, Autobahn everywhere. Woo! You never know. I hope that's not the case. But someone might be getting a document a little bit later than they expected. A lawyer might not be getting the most current information on what's happening. The departments or the organizations that had started to wind down printing capabilities now have to spin everything back up again and stuff like that. And it can result in a lot of delays. And it just goes to show, like, some of this stuff can have very, very far-reaching effects. Now, about the speed cameras, of course, they left the speed cameras in a non-functioning state because they cannot connect back to the central server, if you will, because the Public Prosecution Service system is down. The cameras cannot be reactivated. I don't know, Chris, what type of implementation this is, but I find it very interesting that the cameras have to be activated in order to work. And hopefully someone can pick up on what I'm getting at here. If you deploy an autonomous camera out there in the world that is meant to assess speed and take a picture of someone who's speeding, right? what are you activating? And then I'm kind of thinking about it. Is it able to still take, and this is where my mind is at. Now, the curious part of this is it still able to take the picture? It can just
store
never
it locally.
Yeah, but it can just never like file the ticket, if you will. Or interestingly enough, because the prosecution service is down, does that call into question every picture ever taken? Like, I guess I should say since the attack. Right. So I look at it more as like maybe the cameras all still work, but they know any picture taken during the downtime won't hold up in court. So they're like, never mind, it's off. So interestingly enough, I found like I also was reading through this one and I was like, there's a lot of possibilities here as to why this wouldn't work anymore. I think our mind immediately goes to okay, the central server is down, therefore the cameras are down. Right. And it's like, well, they're not connected over PoE or anything like that. You know what I mean? So what is it that deactivates them? And I find this to be a really interesting thing that definitely stems out of a Hollywood movie. You know, Chris, just imagine you're the one trying to make a getaway and someone's like, what's the status on the cameras? And they're like, beep, beep, boop, enhance, cameras down. And then it's just pop. And you see like the traffic monitor screen. It's like down, 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 down. And you're just like, whoa, what the heck? And then someone's like, just flying through town. And it's like, they'll never catch me, blah, blah, you know? And then I'm like, as a result of that, someone else is getting their lawyer paperwork fees a day late. And whilst you were able to stop the terrorist attack, there's a lawyer's office that really needs their fees and they're not getting them. Anyways, without digressing too much.
I don't know if they make, I think, where was this? The Netherlands? Yeah, I think they're pretty open about public data. Maybe we can go look at traffic stats and see if there's been a spike in accidents or anything like that.
Give me some of that sweet, juicy GDPR.
That's right. I'll ask the robot later.
There we go.
So the Ohm breach has also had a notable impact on judicial operations, as you were just saying. With external connectivity suspended, employees can no longer transmit digital documents outside the organization. Lawyers are physically delivering paperwork, and internal communication is limited to local email. This has delayed legal proceedings, as confirmed by Martine Kunst, a crisis team member handling the incident. Ohm has had to revert to physical mail for external correspondence, an operational regression driven by the need to ensure that hackers have been fully evicted before reconnecting to the internet. The incident underscores how connected infrastructure in government and law enforcement introduces unexpected fragility. In this case, the legal system's IT backbone was central not only to document flow and courtroom logistics, but also to the functioning of enforcement technologies. It's a reminder that the implications of cybersecurity events often go far beyond data confidentiality. They can include degraded public safety and undermine the rule of law. This wasn't a case of attackers turning off speed cameras, but the result is functionally similar: a diminished deterrent for traffic violations and delayed judicial processes due to a loss of digital continuity. So yeah, interesting questions about architecture and maybe different approaches we should be taking with critical systems. Like it's weird that, you know, traffic cameras are tied to their ability to send communications from their legal team. So maybe having those things in isolation and cameras that run autonomously and lots of stuff we could be doing better.
All right. I mean, this one's an interesting one. Who knows? We'll see. I feel like the interesting, or I should say the other interesting takeaway here from all of this, it really stems from the central nature of all those networks and just how closely tied they are. And I think that's going to be the big takeaway for threat actors is like, this one little thing took down all of that, you know, really, really interesting. So in any event, really, really, really cool stuff.
Awesome, man. I'm sure we'll have more to talk about next week.
As always, of course we will. And we're here every week and we're approaching episode 240, 241 or something.
I think we might even be past that. I'd have to check at this point. We've got a producer in-house now that helps get these things on the internet. So I'm a little bit disconnected from the current number right now.
We're somewhere up there, if I remember. Yeah. I think.
But I did just order some new T-shirts, so
all right,
get at me. I'll send you a box.
There we go. All right. Anyone who needs one, let us know.
All right. Take care, sir.
All right, Chris. See ya.
And that brings us to the end of another Intel Chat. You can support this show by sharing your favorite episodes with a friend, or subscribing and giving us a rating, or leaving a comment on your chosen podcast platform. If you want to be part of the conversation and access the intel we talk about in real time, you can join our community forum at community.limacharlie.io. Thanks for listening in, and we'll see you on the next one. The Cybersecurity Defenders Podcast is hosted and produced by Christopher Luft. The show is co-produced and edited by Sam Blake with graphics by Amr Al-Khatib. Sponsored by LimaCharlie, scalable infrastructure for your security services. Visit limacharlie.io to get started for free.